With shipping revenues at levels now below operating costs in several sectors of the industry, many owners and operators are having to consider the unwelcome option of layup. This is not a simple procedure, however, and such a decision requires a lot of careful thought and planning. There are two basic categories of layup, usually defined as hot or cold, depending on how readily the vessel can be brought back into service. But before we look at these in more detail, let's first consider the regulatory requirements. Layup is not just a question of finding a nice quiet bay somewhere, dropping anchor and turning off the machinery. There are a number of flag and coastal state rules that must be followed in order to comply with the ISM code. The code also requires you to follow any guidance provided by the classification societies and the P&I H&M underwriters, as well as any other competent maritime industry organization. Modify the ship's operational maintenance routine to ensure that inspections are held at appropriate intervals, appropriate corrective action is taken, and records of these activities are maintained. Carry out a risk assessment to consider safeguards against all identified risks, and then develop a suitable plan. The ISPS code is also relevant, and this may entail the ship's security plan having to be approved with subsequent interim certification of the vessel prior to re-entry into service if the layup period exceeds 12 months. For re-entry into service after shorter layup periods, additional verification that the security system remains valid and in full compliance with the ISPS code. The CSO or SSO having to arrange and safeguard security measures and procedures with the administration responsible for the layup facility during the layup period. To accord with these and other requirements, you will need to have a comprehensive layup plan. Before we look at some of the details, it's important to know that there is help readily available from the major class societies, who have guidance on layup and reactivation on their websites. P&I organizations. Some flag states and coastal states also have specific requirements as to what is acceptable, and these should be checked on a case-by-case basis. The choice of layup location can depend on a number of factors. The home port, flag state, climatic suitability, security of anchorage, local regulations, environmental risks, and of course, cost. During hot layup, the vessel is essentially kept ready to trade, with varying degrees of readiness that may require notice from 24 hours to a week, depending on the plan drawn up and the maintenance procedures implemented, as well as the makeup of the skeleton crew kept on board. This skeleton crew will need to maintain a full-time fire, leakage, moorings and security watch of the vessel, with the minimum of machinery running. This ensures that the machinery, wiring, and electronic components of the ship are kept within the correct temperature and humidity conditions. Even if the ship is being shut down for only a few weeks, a program must be in place to protect the engine and boiler system, all auxiliary power plants, pumps, generators, in fact all moving parts. Water ballast tanks must also be subject to rigorous inspection and monitoring. The accommodation and bridge is effectively a steel apartment block surrounded by warm air and sitting in cold water. With main engines off, this structure rapidly cools, causing condensation that could lead to corrosion. It's important to maintain minimum air conditioning and monitor the whole area for any problems. On deck, cables, winches and hydraulics sitting idle will soon corrode and seize up, so a regular watch and mend process needs to be in hand to maintain a state of readiness. Holds and tanks must be properly ventilated. A build-up of fumes could have catastrophic consequences. There may also need to be regular underwater inspections to check for damage, corrosion, or a build-up of crustaceans on the hull and within intakes. A well-executed plan should enable the ship to satisfy any inspectors during layup and prior to reactivation, and mean that the ship can resume trading with minimum delay. Cold layup. This is a more drastic measure, with the vessel being shut down with nothing but watchmen on board for what could be a matter of years, not months or weeks. There is obviously an immediate cost saving in operational terms, but the reactivation costs can be extremely high, and the process can take several months. Issues to be considered that have significant safety and cost implications include maintaining secure anchorage, fire prevention, leakage and pollution, blanking off hull openings, the long-term effect on the vessel, integrity of the hull and engines, maintaining sophisticated computer systems at manufacturer's specification. If you are concerned about being able to cope with all the procedures and requirements involved, there are established ship care facilities around the world which will provide maintenance, security, administration, and all the other facilities needed, but at a price. Insurance considerations. Before the ship proceeds to the port or anchorage, your layup plan will have to be accepted by the appropriate class society or other competent maritime industry organization. They will then attend to inspect both the physical and documentary arrangements with a view to issuing the necessary certification for presentation to the underwriters concerned. If you met all your P&I Club's conditions and had no claims throughout the layup period, the club may eventually issue a rebate at the end of the term. H&M underwriters may also agree to either lower a premium due to decreased risk or alter the policy conditions to one of port risks, thus attracting a lower premium. The certification may also need to be submitted to other stakeholders, such as the flag and coastal states concerned. Reactivation. As indicated earlier, reactivation after hot layup may be quite fast, but after a long-term cold layup, it takes a considerable amount of work to bring a vessel back to an acceptable trading condition. 3 months or more may be required, depending on the quality of the plan with regard to maintenance requirements and on whether it was implemented effectively. To reinstate class on reactivation, the Society will have attended periodically on board to inspect the vessel. They may also require ultrasonic thickness measurements to be carried out. Additionally, if the dry dock anniversary falls due while the ship is in layup, an underwater inspection will be effected, so that docking may be deferred until reactivation. On reactivation, any outstanding surveys must be dealt with. Depending on the duration of the layup time, a sea trial may be required in addition to a detailed verification of the entire machinery installation. Summary. Whether to go for hot or cold layup depends on when you judge your particular sector of the market is going to revive. But you need to consider all the relevant factors before you make your decision. Make sure you implement the relevant elements of the ISM and ISPS codes. Carry out a comprehensive risk assessment covering all the internal and external factors. Use the guidance provided by leading class and other stakeholders. Verify flag and coastal state requirements and incorporate them in the layup plan. Initiate a readiness program to help deal with potential equipment problems, testing methods, and contingency planning. Make sure your insurers know about and approve your layup plans, either directly or through a nominated intermediary. The better the layup plan and its implementation, the easier reactivation will be.